Okay, right. So I've been asked to keep this a little bit short, so I can do a quick overview. So this is very much work in progress. This is my current project, if maybe project in inverted commas. It's really about the very short moment at the end of Stalin's life and Chauvis's life, during the 5-year plan, 1948 to 1952, and the idea of literature as a vehicle for labour ideology, what it means to do labour, and the connection between that was developed in the Soviet Union, the connection between labour and a kind of ethic or morality. So this Alexei Stakhanov, I'm sure many of you have heard of Mr. Stakhanov. In 1935, 31st of August, he mined 102, even in August, but 102 tons of coal, which is 14 times his quota. All of these were later declared as false, right? This is fake news. However, this is what the people in the Soviet Union were told, and it took 5 hours and 45 minutes to do that, which is just over a little longer than the time it took my wife and I to get here from New Jersey. So you get the idea, right? This is kind of slightly absurd idea. And then on the 19th of September, he mines 222 tons. And very soon thereafter, Stalin and the Russian Communist Party developed this idea of Stakhanovism, which is really encouraging people to overdo their quota for the purpose of industrialization, right? And so this is the context in which much of this literature in the mid to late 40s, this kind of labor-focused literature developed. So what I'm going to talk about today is that there are the text that I wrote that is in the program. I'm not going to repeat very much of that, but it should be understood in relation to what I read. So I've identified kind of 4 sort of specific types of literature about labour. First is What Changed So Suddenly, which is written in 1944 by Dan and Sarah. Many of you will have read some of these. But Sarah was a woman whose husband went away to war, and she transformed herself from an illiterate, rather lazy young woman into a hero of labour, simply by the power of her determination. Lizia's moving camp in the winter of Newton is about precisely that, moving camp in a very dangerous, very snowy period, and everybody working together. So the idea of labour is being everyone working together. And Roland Byers in the morning of the first is about a family, and a modern family. You notice it was written in 1948, which is right at the beginning of the 5-year plan. And the whole basis of this very short vignette story is the family working together to fulfill their parts in the 5-year plan. On the other hand, we have what Miadakvated by Senja in which a very lazy, very stupid young woman does nothing but hang out and have a rather, to begin with, rather nice life, and then in the end, a tragic life. So, we have both parts of this. We have ideas of how to do this labour, and we have the idea of Miadagma, how not to do the labour. Okay, and many of these were, I think, designed as kind of teaching tools, by ideological pedagogical stuff. Here is Tarwa, who wrote the real focus of this talk, which is Damaran's Damaran's people or Damaran's family, depending on your perspective. So it was written during the first 5-year plan. It was written in 1951. It could be. I've yet to identify any other Stakhanovite novellas or novels in Mongolia. If anybody knows of any, please tell me. I think it may be the only one. Shows the way in which the traditional family, a family comes from the steppe in Lake, one of the children, Donogma, moves to UB and is the hero of the story, heroine of the story. But it shows how the traditional family can also be a family of modern new people, referencing the idea of the Novi Soviet story, Chelovek, which was the standard idea of the Soviet Union, but Shinhun was in Mongolia. Shows how determination and hard work and morality characterizes the model citizen. It's always giving ideas about how to be a better citizen. Contains model interactions, which we're going to deal with in a moment, for the improvement of personal and group labour. And it concludes with the reward for improved labour by a kind of a short section talking about the International Workers' Day, which is the last one on which tribalism was like. So I have 4 vignettes here. Donogma's best friend is Tushin. So you can read this now. So the problem with studying literature is that when you do these PowerPoints, you have to make a huge number of words. So please only concentrate, unless you read very quickly, on the highlighted bit. So this is Tushin. I'm not going to read what's on here, but this is where Tushin finds out, our best friend, finds out how much Donogma is educating herself. Educating herself not only ideologically, but in terms of models, such as Stakhanov and Chuktik, who's a lesser known Stakhanovite kind of individual. And so then she asks herself questions, right? How did the experience of these leading workers help them to manage their technology? How firm should the workers discipline? Right? This is Donogma's written questions to herself. So she's thinking through, right? She's reading these books and she's thinking through. Tushin sees this, and from that moment on, she's doing even more in the story to improve her work, but also to improve her understanding. And then, of course, she notes this Pushkin text that Donogma has written to Pushkin's poem to Chadayev. My dear friend, my fine heart, I dedicate to my motherland. Right, so this idea of the dedication of Donogma is dedicating herself to her motherland. This is what Tushin wants to do too. So this is the power of friendship. And these light bulb moments happen a lot in Mongolian literature, right back to the beginning of the revolution, when people who were not interested in the revolution or who were skeptical about it experienced something, and then they had also this light bulb moment, and then they became full-on revolutionaries. So this is a transformative process that goes back right at the beginning of the revolutionary period. And you see this very much brought up to date in this kind of industrial context. Okay. Next example, Donna is constantly raising her quota, increasing her quota, and along with her there is Achia, who is her rival. And so a kind of a friendly, kind of not terribly friendly rivalry, which you can see a little bit here. So they're vying for being who's in front and who isn't. So the whole list of people's names with their quotas are put up every morning. And so Achia wants to know how to do better. So Donragma, who's been doing all this reading, she says, so you're starting work at 8 o'clock. Yes, so what? So how many minutes then before you actually start? We probably start working about 5 or 10 minutes after 8, and you finish at 5. Yeah, and what's more, we start about 10 minutes early to record our work and some other things. And you can hear the wheels turning in Don Logma's mind. Well, you shouldn't be spending 5 minutes hanging out, and you shouldn't be spending 10 minutes before the end of your shift just discussing stuff. So you should be doing 15 minutes more work, and if you do 15 minutes more work, then you can improve your quota. This is what's going around, and this is what Achia later does. So this rivalry is also, this was something that Chuktik, whose name we heard a little bit earlier, this is what he was particularly keen on, this kind of revolutionary rivalry, right? So Stakhanov just did his thing, but Chuktik came along and said, no, you can even do better, because if you have rivalry, then you can improve and improve and improve. Everybody gets better, okay? And this is what we see in Achia's discussion here. So after Achia the rival, we have Dandin, the protege, another type of protege from Tufshin. Again, she says to him, you'll get better. So she said to Achia, you can get better. This is how you do it. And here she says, you can get better. And then she gives this idea, all the power we expend, all the work that we undertake, and all the production from our work are power, work, and production dedicated to the improvement of our model. And again, remembering what she was saying in her note about Pushkin's poem, it's all focused on the motherland. It's not about Donna, it's not about her idea, about herself, it's about the motherland, it's about Mongolia, it's about Mongolian industry. So it's all ostensibly, at least, probably not in reality, but ostensibly, in this model text, it's selfless. And again, Dandin continues to do a little bit better. And he actually takes this message and tries, unsuccessfully, but he tries to persuade the Miadagma of this story, the slacker, who only does a little bit just so he doesn't get fired, called Namsrin. So Dandin is channeling Dondogma here, and he's talking to Namsrin. And Namsrin, as you can see, is basically saying, don't you tell me what I need to do. And he already had a big fight with Dondogma about the same thing earlier. So everybody's on it, Namsrin, for basically doing nothing. But Dandin says, so you can't tell, no, he says, you can't tell me what to do. You can't instruct me about anything, either about my life or about my work. You would criticize me for fulfilling 60 or 70% of my quota, but I will not be criticized. Can you so easily forget that 3 days ago, you were last among our workers in transporting the cast iron? You have no right to lecture on that, nor will you in the future. So he's mistaken. He's not getting it. Because if you get better, then by implication you can help. You can actually do what Donaldman is doing, helping other people to do that, which is what Dandin is doing with Namsville. So So all the way through, we have these model scenes, right, where the characters are modeling to the reader a way of dealing with labor, a way of improving their character, improving their behavior, and thereby improving their quota in order to get better for the motherland, for the industry that Mongolia is developing at this time for the fighting land. Now, I know that the title of this refers to morality. I haven't spoken about morality. I think that there are elements of morality built into the language and into the relationships that are developed in this novella. And that is what I want to look at in greater detail over the course of the paper. But what I think we've seen here is that morality is already built in to the whole idea, because this is about selfless labor. This is not about just doing better for yourself. This is about doing better for yourself and for the country. So there is already the idea of morality here. And if you look at what Dondogma does, she basically goes to work, comes home, reads ideological material, and goes to sleep. That's all she does. She doesn't go out and hang out with people. She doesn't do the things that maybe she shouldn't be doing, or things that are not model behavior. She just works, right? So hopefully in the paper that comes out of this at some stage, I'll be looking more about the way in which morality and ethics is developed in the language. But right now I'm just thinking about the structure of the dialogues, the structure of the characterization, and the way in which Tarba is developing his idea, his ideological idea, his characterization idea, and also the idea of the whole story as a whole. And then in the end, so Dondogma is made a hero of labor for her 600% of her quota. I mean, it's a little bit unlike. And yet, once she sees Marshal Tribuson's smile as he came very in front of the stage, it seems to Dondogma that she heard herself saying, in response to her success, now you should achieve 1,000. Well, good luck. But we'll see. But this is really the end, okay? And this is taking place in the May Day celebrations, International Workers' Day celebrations on May 1st. So little did Tarba know in 1951 that Johnson would die in February and March 1952. So he wouldn't be there for the 1952 International Workers' Day. And of course, very soon thereafter, Zedendorf came to power, and there was a thaw, the end of the 5-year plan, a slightly relaxed version of ideological literature and ideology as a cultural phenomenon, as a cultural directive. And so this really represents a very potent and very powerful moment in Mongolia, but also in the history of Mongolian socialist literature. And so, my question was moving forward, which, if you're interested in asking questions about these questions. So how does he articulate the relationship between morality and labour in terms of language, narrative, art? That's what my part of this project is. So what is the specific role of Damiran? Damiran, Dondogma's father, he also becomes a hero of labour for herding sheep, but he doesn't take part in the city scenes. he's back at home, then he comes in for the May Day celebrations. So why is it called Dagerangi? Right? How is labour handled in other texts written during the 5-year plan? So there must be other texts, I'm assuming, labour, poetry, as well as prose. And finally, what was the meaning of labour for Mongolian society during the Late-Stalinist era? This is another thing altogether, but it's obviously tangential to labour. I can see you hovering. Right, okay. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you very much for taking your time. And questions, one or two questions. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I do have one question. So just I guess it's kind of related to your last question because having read Karl Marx, Communist Manifesto and all the writings, and then what he basically meant is to turn a human being into a cog of the machine, right? But it basically it's ironic that human being, Don is just kind of turning herself into a cog in the machine. Machinery of socialism is being celebrated. I find it kind of ironic.
Well, that's the whole thing with Marxism, isn't it? Would Marx have been a Marxist? In the way that it developed, right?
So that's what we've been told. Karl Marx is what we're striving for.
Yeah. No, that's a really interesting point. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, do any of the characters in literature of this time really turn into Marxist, or do they just turn into the cogs? Right? They are cogs, right?
Emma.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you know very much about the thinking on writing and creative practices as a kind of labor during this period, because the substance is all about very different kind of labor. So I wonder about how that kind of work was seen in that last one.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that would be very interesting. I need to do more reading and research about how Mongolians thought about labor at that time. So to try and find books not written afterwards about it, but to find texts that actually deal with the ideas of that particular moment. And also the text that the directives that came from the Writers' Guild about how writers were to write about labour. And the whole book of directives, like I was that certain. I would really like to look at very carefully through these and see what I can find about the way in which during the 5-year plan they were being asked to write about labour. But if you trace everything back to the beginning of the 40s, even in 1941, Senge wrote a poem called Udan, right? So the shop worker. It's a very bizarre poem. It's kind of horror-erotic, and it's about the sweating, glistening bodies of these strong men who are working. But it's also a real celebration that you can see in Soviet literature at the time, and also to some extent in Western communist literature at the time, like British communists were writing that kind of thing about the strong workers. So the whole idea about labour as a policy, labour as a physical exercise, and labour as an ideology, all of that would come together in something that is obviously now, with your very pertinent question, growing exponentially into a vast research topic that I may write this paper in 13, 14 years' time. But it's a huge question. And also I need to look at a lot more text, but I don't also need to source these texts. And it's more difficult to try and source text in the 1940s and before. Okay, but what we have thus far are really dealing with this kind of thing. Right? Does that answer your question?
Yes, that's-
Right, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're successfully finished our panels, and now we have book launch, two books, and then I would like to invite the other panel guests here. Maybe just that of the customer for this. I feel like I'm. Oh.
No, that's all standard. Yeah.
Should I try?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
Zaman ini sejak sudah untuk ayo kami dari segi dengan berkaitan dengan konsentrasi keuangan, investasi dan perusahaan atau tidak sungguh situ baik. Dengan cara dengan sesuatu yang fail, cara itu yang
I just switched. So I'll be honest. It's not my friend. The reason why I should so let's see if this one.
Sass's machine. Do my number here quickly. As I mentioned to the archaeology group this morning, I've been working in Mongolia since about 2001 with the guy from John Meyersekon from the National Museum of Mongolia. And he and I sort of spent about 15 years researching the Bronze Age, the late Bronze Age, mostly northern Mongolia, Hunskull and nearby places. And over that time, we assembled enough data to produce two books. One of them is called Deer Stones of Northern Mongolia, and this is Meyersekon's PhD thesis at the National Museum of Mongolia, which we translated and published at the Arctic Studies Center. And it's a phenomenal book analyzing the art of deer stones. And he goes into a lot of detail on the references to oral history and literature and symbols and so forth. So this is really a tremendous piece of work that's going to stand for a long, long time as a major work on deer stone art and its interpretation. It replaces work done by Volkov, who was a Russian archaeologist who published the deer stones of Mongolia in Russian. And it was a big inventory of sites, but not much analysis. So this is one really neat piece of work. And if you're interested in the Bronze Age and art and the origins of Scythian art, this is you will find a lot of interest here. So we were partners on this project, and while he was cataloging and doing the deer stone art, I was sort of doing the deer stone Bronze Age archaeology, which basically means we were working together, but I was more concerned with the sites we were digging and the description of the sites, the ideas that people had that we met about the deer stones, and with Peter Bittenthal, who publishes materials for us, and he's here. Where are you, Peter? There it is, over there. So he's helped us publish these books. He's designed them and got them printed, and did a beautiful job on Myra's book and also in mine. So this is kind of like an archaeological monograph, but it's mixed with a lot of ethnographic material, because I wrote diaries of people we were meeting as we were doing the work and so on. So actually, I think this is one of my best pieces of work. It was a lot of fun, and it's been designed in a really attractive way. So there's some books out there. If you're interested, you can buy one, or you can go online and get one. I think the two books together are going to be really helpful in terms of moving forward on Bronze Age art and archaeology, symbolism, and so forth. So that's what I have to say. And I think the last thing I'll say is that, we had this big question about deer stone art, whether it was derivative of the Scythian art, the wonderful art of the steppes and the Pontic region, or was earlier. And so what we were able to accomplish with our work was very careful radiocarbon dating deer stones, and we found out that they date 500 to 800 years before the Scythian period. So deer stones are representative of art from the tradition, the nomad tradition that fed into and contributed to the Grand Scythian art that we know of so much from the western part of Asia. So it was a lot of fun. That's all I have to say about that. So I want to introduce Sass Carey. Sass, I first got to know Sass when we were doing our work up in northern Mongolia, and she was sort of converging on that area also as a public health nurse, working with the reindeer people known as Satan or Duha, and she had a long string of work with those people. She's got a great story to tell. She's written a book, basically a biography with wonderful stories about how her life unrolled and how eventually she was able to marry Mongolia. A lot of us knew that spiritually, but she's sort of done it in real life. So, Sass, please come.
So nice to see you all. Because I'm married to Mongolia, so here we are, right? I wanted to show a few pictures and talk about how I got involved with Mongolia. I think it was a very magical experience, and I think Mongolia is a magical place. I was an energy healer, and one of my clients said, "You really should go to China and learn about traditional medicine there." And I said, "That's a good idea, but I don't have any money." And she said, "Well, how many sessions would it be?" And we traded 7 years of sessions of healing energy for $5,000, and I went to China and Mongolia. and that was in 1994. When I got off the plane, they didn't have any tarmac yet. I got off the plane and my feet touched the ground and I felt the energy rush up through my body. And I knew there was some connection for me for Mongolia. Of course, no one believed me, but it happened over the years. So I started working in Ulaanbaatar and in the Gobi, and I got a message in meditation to make a movie about Gobi women to see how they could possibly live using only 5 liters of water a day, which is what we found out they did. And that was in 2001, we started that movie. Each movie came from the one before. So by 2003, and it actually happened in the Smithsonian, that we were presenting on different things that work, different researchers were presenting on work they were doing in Mongolia. And Dan Plumley said he was working with the reindeer herders, with the Duhok or something. And I had seen a little picture of a shaman on a reindeer, and I thought, I really want to go there, but I'm not going to go as a tourist. I really want to go and do something there. And so when we had that meeting, Dan came up to me after I presented on traditional Mongolian medicine because I had studied it with Dr. Bolsahin in Ulaanbaatar. A friend of mine and I were the first Westerners to be trained in Mongolian medicine. And when I talked about that, he said to me, well, would you like to go up? Because all of the people are looking for healthcare. They're looking for somebody that understands different kinds of healthcare. And up there, of course, they do use Western healthcare because they have doctors in the Sum area, in Saranor, and then they have traditional medicine, and then they also have shamans, and they also have their own folk medicine using the plants. So Dan was thinking that they were asking for someone who could respect all those different kinds of healthcare. So I went up, and the land is just so incredibly beautiful. This is a family getting ready to migrate, and we made one movie called Migration because I found as I was in Mongolia that I fell in love with the traditional life, and I felt it was so important for the world to know about that life happening right now. I'm just going to jump ahead on one thing and tell you my latest movie is called Transition, and that movie has been shown on 5 continents about your traditional life, Mongolia's traditional life. So I feel happy about that. But after I met the Gobi women, I went back some years later, and none of them were nomadic herders anymore. I had 5 of them in the movie. And so I thought, now that I know the reindeer herders and they are still migrating, why don't I make a movie about that? Because that's what a nomad does, is migrate. So these pictures are of them. This is little Orna child in the orts. They live in Siberian teepees or orts, you probably know. And the people in the background, in the mirror or the picture, are the people that were in my movie Transition. That's the mother and daughter of the protagonist of Transition. This was before we made that movie. And sometimes in the orts, they'd ask me to do some healing, and they have their own ways of healing. In fact, they drink, they put horse manure in with water, and the fusion that happens, the person drinks. And I think it has real medical truth to it. It creates a chronic condition for appendicitis, and then those people can wait to have their appendix out and not die. And this boy had appendicitis. And it made me so nervous, but they had their own treatment and it worked. And later he went and had the surgery. This is, these people are in the East Taiga and they're watching a movie about themselves. That's me on a reindeer. Here are my movies and books. So this book, this is the latest book that I had Peter, Bill introduced me to Peter. It's all connected, right? And he designed this book, which I'm very happy with. And as Bill said, it's about my life and what led me to be able to do the work in Mongolia, like sleep on the ground and ride the horse 8 hours and, you know. And this is a book, my first book, and this has been translated into French and Mongolian. It's called Reindeer Herders in My Heart in English. And that one, yeah. The movies are Steppers, Mare's Milk, and Jelly Jars. That's about my experience of learning traditional medicine. That's the first one. And then came Gobi Women's Song. And then Ceremony, which I haven't mentioned, but I interviewed a lot of shamans up in the taiga and watched a lot of ceremonies and documented that. And because I keep going back every year, they let me shoot everything. They give me complete access, and I'm so grateful to them for allowing that. Let me just look at my notes to see if I've told you what I want to tell you. The movies are all in Mongolian. The books, my books, are in English, and they're my voice, you know, so that's my point of view. In fact, when some of the reindeer herders, we gave one of these to each of the reindeer herder families, and when one of them read it, she said, "Oh, I was always wondering what you were thinking about when you were here." That was fun. I also started a program called Nomad I Care, and to create movies. And the mission is to support and preserve traditional Mongolian nomadic culture through healthcare, films, and books. So that's what we've been doing. And I want to tell you the most exciting thing that happened this year, or just in the last few weeks, is that I got to trade with Miat, Mongolian Airlines, for a flight there, or maybe more flights, and they get my movie Migration. And so maybe if you're flying into Mongolia sometime, you'll see little clips from my movie on the screen. The last thing I want to say is just I fell in love with Mongolia, and that's why it's called Marrying Mongolia. Thank you all. Yes.
Significant amount of acupuncture.
Yes, acupuncture actually comes from the Chinese medicine, but it is part of traditional Mongolian medicine. Yes. Yes.
Besides, please share us what was the best medical herb that you discovered in Mongolia?
Best medical herb
And you discovered in Mongolia.
medical herb or plant that you.
Oh, yes, of course, you know. Does anybody else have any ideas? Badakshin. Badakshin. Y'all know Badakshin? Okay, that one's a great one. And up in the taiga, actually, I saw somebody who was really sick. I'm not a doctor, so I don't diagnose, but it seemed like that person had TB. They were very flushed and coughing and all that. And the next time when I went, they had taken Vonsenbro and wolf's tongue. Those herbs, so the taiga people have their own special herbs that grow in Huskul, and they use those too. I think you should use everything, if you're sick, you want to get well, so That's what, they all work. What other questions?
What's your plan next, Mongolia?
Okay, I'm going this June, July for the month. And I haven't decided if my board and everybody wants me to not ride a horse this time for 8 hours, but we'll see. I'm trying to get a plane or a helicopter to get over there. Because I miss the people so much. I showed the movie a couple of weeks ago at a library in Vermont. And when I was watching it, I almost started crying, just missed everybody so much because I haven't seen them since COVID. So I haven't been there since 2019. And
That means in the 2019 you rode horse for 8 hours?
uh-huh, yes,
8 hours?
yeah.
How old are you? How old are you?
77, 78 next week. You can see how much I love your country.
It's your country, okay?
Oh, okay.
There's no other way, right? It's just horse then. If they'll stop, stand up to the
Right. Except they do have one plane that takes people to the Tingizan Shishkin River. So I'm gonna try to work it out. Yes,
Have you ever looked into or studied the issue with massage for concussion?
yes, that's so interesting the way.
How it's not outside of Mongolia all of a sudden.
Yeah, I've never seen it outside of Mongolia, but some of the Gobi women that I met showed me how that worked. And they just do massage outside on your skull like this, and it's supposed to remove headaches and concussions. And my teacher showed me the concussion part where you put a boost belt around and twist it different ways, and then you snap it like that, and on the area on the side that is okay and is supposed to be like. I wouldn't do it myself, but I saw him do it, Dr. Bolsain. Yes.
Thank you for sharing your interesting story, and I wanted to know where we can see them. Like,
Okay.
available.
I think Gobi Women's Song is available on YouTube, but they're all available on the web. Go to nomadicare.org, and out there where we have the books, I have some bookmarks, and they all have the name Nomadicare, Nomad I Care, NOMADICARE.org, because somebody else stole the name after I made it up to do a com, so it's not com, it's org. And on that, there's a page like this, and you can just click on any of them and find which one you want. Any other questions?
Are you planning to marry Mongolians then?
I know, the whole country. There's the whole country for me.
So, have you ever visited,
Oh, I haven't been to Inner Mongolia, no.
You're selling this books, right?
This book is for sale, $30 out there. You're welcome to. And you can also order it from Amazon, or you can buy it from the website, Nomadicare.
And then every sale, this profit goes to Nomadicare.
Yeah.
There is Nomadicare, lots of healthcare jobs, very good job. Not only what's happening, but
In this book, I had a very famous translator. Sorry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.